Hi there, I'm Rebecca and a really warm welcome back to my channel Created by Rebecca. In this week's video we're going to be continuing my journey with needle felting, and we're going to be doing an unboxing and a review of this kit from Felt and Dandy, and it is a wren on a cotton reel. Let's get started. Behind me are just some of the needle felting projects that I have done in the space of about a year. I took this up around November, December last year, and here we are again at the beginning of November 2025. As I say, this is just some of the projects I've done. I started with the 3 baubles that I got as a kit from Bergen and Bath, and that's my first needle felting video on this channel. I progressed to doing my own things. This is a little sheep. These little sheep are adorable. They could be baubles, but I like them just as little freestanding things. More kits, more things I decided just to do myself with no guidance at all. These little hanging ornaments that look a bit like cookies that have been iced, and this is quite 3-dimensional. To my life-size squirrel. I love him. And I'm really enjoying the full gambit of things that are possible with needle felting, whether it's something that looks quite realistic or just something fun, it's like a little Easter egg, but completely needle felt. And I saw this kit on Etsy a good few months ago, and I was thinking that's probably well above my skill levels, but I'm going to keep it in my basket, keep thinking about it, and see whether the things that I'm making fill me with the confidence to go ahead and do this. So what I'm doing today is reviewing the kit. This is not a tutorial on how to make this. You are watching me make it, and if anything's good or it catches me out, then I'm going to tell you about it there and then in the video. Let's start with having a look at what's in the box. So here is our kit. Now, I haven't opened it at all yet. I was saving it just for you, just for this video. It's from Felt and Dandy, as I said, and it's going to make us 2 wrens. It comes in a really nice box, so I think it'll make a really nice gift. And it says we've got photo instructions, a template, reference pictures, wooden reels, so that's for the birds to sit on, 3 felting needles, a mat, wool, felt, glass eyes, acrylic glue, cocktail sticks, wire and twine. That sounds very comprehensive. But let's get inside and have a look. Okay, so we've got a big quantity of carded wool here in a sort of fawn colour. We've got a slightly smaller quantity of a raw sienna. A smaller still, biscuity colour. A sort of foxy colour. And black, and these all are carded wools. And then the rest of everything is in the bottom of the box. Here are our 2 cotton reels. They're a lovely size, aren't they? That looks like our armature wire, which feels like it, yes it is, it's a cloth covered wire. Our little mat. Some twine, That's a lovely tube. We've got our felting needles and cocktail sticks and eyes in there. We've got a thick sheet of felt and then a normal weight felt cloth. And there's the glue as well. I'm not going to take you through the instructions in too much detail. These are obviously Felt and Dandy's instructions, so they have the rights over them. We'll have a quick glance through and then we'll get on with the actual making. So it's 9 sheets of photographs and then the template as well for reference. The instructions do say that they recommend reading right through before starting the project. If you're new to needle felting, do not worry, it's very simple. I don't think it makes any claims as to what sort of skill level you should have, so don't be afraid of it. It possibly looks a bit intimidating to a beginner, and maybe it would be great to start with a few more simple things. But if you want to dive straight in with this project, then why not? It gives you some quick descriptions of the fact that you're going to be using barbed needles to tangle the fibres. They're very sharp. Don't twist them or bend them. It says to fully insert the barbed section of the needle into your work so that it's doing the felting properly. It tells you to use the felting mat so that you don't hit your work surface. Lift it regularly, otherwise you're going to be felting it into the mat. Felt firmly. The instructions take you through each step and refer you to the template chart for sizes. How much wool will depend on how tightly you felt your bird. There is extra wool in the kit, so don't worry, you will have plenty left. That's good to know. That helps you feel confident about how much you're using. I mean, I guess you know you're going to be making 2 birds. It would be simplest to start by just splitting everything in half. But yeah, I will go ahead, read the instructions through, and then we'll come back. I've just cut out the outline of the wren from the instructions as it tells you to. And then with this super thick felt, you place this on and draw around the template and cut out. And that's really interesting. I think I would have expected to start, like most kits tend to, with making a ball, or a lot of them give you a polystyrene shape to build onto. I've not seen one so far that uses this method, so this is really interesting. So according to the instructions, we actually start to build up one side of the wren, and then you build up the other side of the wren so that this is sandwiched in the middle. And I mean, if I'm careful, I could actually make lots of things using that method, using this same piece of felt. I've got plenty of room to cut out. I don't know, 1, 2, 3, maybe another 4 if I'm careful. I'm going to heed my own advice, and I'm going to divide this wool in half, roughly. They say there's plenty, so we'll take them at their word. So yes, they say that they gave you 15 grams of oatmeal, 5 grams of plain brown, 2 grams of black, 2 grams of beige and 3 grams of mixed brown, which must be that one. That's good, at least you can identify the oatmeal from the beige. Well, that's a bit odd. They give you 3 needles and they're colour coded, but they don't tell you what those needles are and when you should be using them. It just tells you to poke the needle in to the project. They all appear to have flat faces, so I can safely say they are plain triangular needles. And I guess we've just got varying gauges. They are actually 3 different lengths. I don't know whether that signifies anything. Yeah, maybe. That one feels like the thinnest, which is the green, then the pink, and then the dark blue. The instructions also tell you to transfer the beak mark across onto the thickness of the felt so that you can see it from that edge. And then they tell you to take some oatmeal wool. They don't really tell you how much, but you can sort of see how much she's holding in her fingers. And they tell you to fold it to give you a smoother edge and create bulk. And you lay that along the edge. And so now the question becomes, which needle do we use? I guess I'm going to go in with the longest, thickest one. They don't tell you. I guess it makes sense to use the longest, thickest needle on this early phase because you are sort of trying to go into this thick felt to make sure it stays attached. But it doesn't really tell you that, and it doesn't really tell you that you are meant to be felting through into it. Actually, that thinner pink needle is much easier. What is that one for then? I don't know. I think certainly at this early stage I might be inclined to put this piece of foam on top of something else, maybe another piece of foam or another felting mat. I don't know, I just feel like with the amount of pressure you need to get through into the white, what they call the hobby felt, you risk hitting your work surface quite a bit actually. But if you're a beginner and you haven't got any other sort of surface that you can put underneath, maybe an old towel would be a good idea. And then you keep checking your work against the diagrams that they've given you. So I can see I really need to build this out a lot here through the body and a lot less through the head. But it gives you the shape that you're working to, and obviously you're going to be felting that quite firmly. It's a little bit tricky to show you, but I think that is now fitting the shape of the template quite well. Okay, I think I am just about there, and it's pretty firm, so there's very little compression if I press on it, which means that it should hold its shape. as I continue to work on the rest of the design. And I ended up doing all that work with the pink needle. I gave up on the blue one, it was too thick. Maybe that's for something else later on. Okay, it says we need to lay the fibres vertically down the back, starting just above the beak line and down the back as shown. Now, if I was being pedantic, as I am, I would say, as that is the back of the bird, vertical would technically be that way, but I don't think that's what they mean. I think they mean lay it that way. A bit like that. And I would say if you wanted to make this look really realistic, then you would probably want to have some reference photographs next to you while you're working as well, not just the instruction guide, because that is using photographs of them making a felt creation. So yeah, actual pictures of a real wren would be a very good idea for you. Take a wispy bit of oatmeal and pull the fibres so they are all lying horizontally as shown. Lay them along the front of the body following the line of the template. So you want the fibres to lay horizontally. Lay them along the front of the body following the line of the template, so like that. Then take another wisp of oatmeal fibres, lay them vertically, cut across the top to create a neat edge. Okay, so we're back with our oatmeal, and it wants us to pull the fibres till they all lay horizontally. And it doesn't say across the front, does it? It does say along the front. My biggest bugbear is confusing instructions. I know that it's really hard to explain things properly, but that ought to be where the photographs come in, and they don't quite in this case. There's a chance we're just trying to hide that piece of thick felt that we used initially. Take another wisp of this wool in the oatmeal. Now, it does seem like wisp is a technical term when it comes to needle felting. I don't know if you remember my Bergin and Bath baubles kit that I reviewed. I did not understand what it meant by wisp, and I thought it was a really stupid word to use. It just doesn't explain how much you are meant to be using. Position them vertically, cut edge wrapped around the front and sides of the face, just above the beak line. Okay. I've cut out the template pieces for the wings and tail, and I get to draw those out on the piece of brown felt. Then it says to start with the tail piece and take a little of the plain brown wool, enough to cover it. Lay the fibres over the tail piece, allowing them to overhang the edges and poke very lightly to hold in place. So I'm going to go with the green needle again. fold the loose edges over to encase the tail around the edges and the top. Leave the fibres loose at the base. So when you think of the base of an animal's or a bird's tail, you're thinking of where it meets the body, and the other end is the tip, isn't it? Generally. So we want to leave the fibres loose up here. In fact, I'm going to just add a few more on. That's going to help us join it to the body. Having marked 3 lines, we have to then take tiny pieces of the beige and the black and create a kind of checkerboard effect. So now we've got, I think, all our main pieces. There's the wren itself, the tail, and both wings. You can see the mark that I made with my pencil to just remind me where the hole needed to be. And I'm actually using the dark blue needle felting needle to drive straight through the wren's head. Now this isn't going to be big enough. You're meant to use an awl, a metal awl, to use this. It is weird how quickly felted wool will sort of come back together and fill a hole. So you do need to make a bigger hole than you think you're going to need. Now, I would say that the line marking for the beak on the first template is actually for the top line of the beak. They don't really tell you that. I was using it as the centre marking for the beak, but actually it's supposed to be the top, so it needs to come up a bit higher. That's a shame. Well, that explains why I didn't like the shape that the beak was making. Now we use the templates to mark the position for the eyes. So I'm actually going to use my needle felting tool to kind of get a sense of the distances from the corners of the eye, or the top of the eye, or whatever marker you want to use, to the edge of the bird. And I think that position that I have is fairly good. And I can view the bird from all angles just to see, do they continue to line up in every plane? Something I've found with these eyes is that although they are marked as the same size, they are manufactured ever so slightly differently. So if you've got a few to choose from, it can be worth just comparing them to each other. And if you've got ones that look slightly smaller, it's worth keeping those as a pair. So again, I'm using my thicker felting needle to just go all the way through. And I'm going to just dry test that eye. Yep, good. Okay, so we're going back to our boss stick. And being careful not to get glue everywhere else. Just going to insert the eye and then press and hold. And press and hold. Now we're going to move on to the tail, and we need to attach it like this so that it sticks upwards. Now I've just popped a pin in so that I can check I'm happy with the position. And it says to poke the loose bits that we left out when we were making the tail into the body of the wren. Then we use the template to add the wings. And I can pin again just to make sure that I've got the position locked in. And again, check from all angles that they do actually line up. Looks pretty good. You have to be a bit careful now when we're poking in around the head area, because of course we've got bits of metal and we've got bits of wood, and if we try and do it too hard or too fast, then the likelihood is that we will bend, if not snap, the needle. So I'm actually going to swap down to my gold Heidi Feathers needle and just work very carefully across the surface to get those threads combined. I did just take a little bit of the acrylic glue and pop it onto the ends of the milliner's wire because I did find that it was starting to unravel, and that's set overnight and is now holding properly. The instructions said that you could make a hole in your cotton reel, 2 holes for the legs, using an awl, and I didn't believe it. It's a really solid piece of wood, but with not too much effort, I did actually manage to make a hole that deep. So yes, don't be a disbeliever. So we're meant to find the position of both feet. And then drive the awl in. And I'm not going to lie, that does take a little bit of effort. So if you'd rather do it with a drill, I think go ahead and do that. But the wren does poke down into those holes quite nicely. Oh, and my threads come off again. And then once he's dry, we apply pressure to push him backwards, and then bob him forward on his legs. Now I'm not sure how I feel about him just having little stubs going straight into the cotton reel. It might be that when I come to do the second one, I find a way to add some claws, but it does look great. The final part of the project is to wrap some twine around the reel. I'm going to grab some more of my boss stick. Personally, I think this will be a lot easier to do without the wren glued in position, but there we go. Because once you've driven the holes in with the awl, there's no reason that you couldn't do this bit. And let's just have a look at what I have got remaining. I've got tons of the milliner's wire. You really only use 5 centimetres for each leg, so there's lots left over. If you make a mistake, don't worry. There were 4 coloured ends of these cocktail sticks, so that means I could make not just one more, but another 2. Yes, I've only got 1 more cotton reel, but that doesn't mean I couldn't do other things with wrens. I've got most of my piece of batting. Remember, this is half of the quantity. I have the other halves of the wool stashed away to do the second bird. So lots of this left over. Lots of the brown. Lots of the mixed brown. Lots of the beige. I barely use that. I think that's just for the dotting. Yeah, that's just for the dotting. So you use tiny amounts of this, and the same with the black. And as I say, I've got that all over again, saved in the box for the other bird. I've got lots of the twine left. I could have been more generous on my reel, but for that particular one I didn't feel I needed to be. Plenty of the hobby felt left, and lots of the brown felt for the tail and wings. And there's one pair of eyes left. Now, I have actually got some more glass eyes, so that's not going to hold me back at all. And you can get those fairly inexpensively. I'm really pleased with how he's turned out. I actually think he looks quite lifelike, which is wonderful. Now, this kit is currently priced at £24.50 plus £4.99 shipping from the UK to the UK. There might be other options for overseas, I'm not sure, I didn't look at that. Everything's really nicely packaged and becomes quite clear once you check the weights on the walls to see which one is which colour. I was disappointed that it didn't tell you anything about the needles, it didn't tell you what size they were, it didn't tell you what the colour meant, it didn't tell you when you were meant to use them. The instructions were good. They were good. I felt like you could have done with maybe a couple more photographs in places just to completely explain what the wording was trying to say. But other than that, I was able to follow it through from beginning to end and end up with something that looks an awful lot like what's on the box. So for £24.50, was it worth the money? You got an awful lot of wool. So much more wool than you needed. So much of all the other supplies. There was absolutely everything you needed apart from a pair of scissors, an awl to poke the holes with, and a tape measure if you were really worried about how long the legs were. I can roughly work out what 5 centimetres is, so I didn't bother with that. I thought, as a self-contained kit, I thought that was really good value. Really good value. And I say, full colour instructions, lots of photographs. Yeah, the only thing I wish was that they had discussed more about the needles, because they are such a fundamental part of the hobby. You can't needle felt without the needles. So, if this is somebody who's a bit of a beginner that's picking this kit up, they might want to know what the difference is between those needles. I thought that was the only gap. Right, that's it for this week's video. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like, share and subscribe to me here on YouTube. And until next time, bye.